As a cattle producer, you spend each day planning how to make your cattle operation better. Better daily gains, better cattle, and better profits means a better chance that your ranch will last for generations to come. But what about planning for the best? That was the question that Alltech set out to answer a few years ago, and the result is Blueprint, a targeted animal nutrition program designed to impact both animal health and performance, as well as environmental stewardship.
Good evening and welcome to Rural America Live. I'm Christina Loren, and tonight we have quite a show for you. I am joined by Neil Bumgarner, the Director of Sales at Alltech, and Tyler Melroe, Senior Beef Nutritionist. Welcome to both of you. We're really excited. This is a very timely conversation just ahead, of course, of calving season.
Absolutely.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, you know, we have so much to talk about. We know that we have a lot of producers out there who are always looking to improve their bottom line. Let's start, though, with a little bit about your background. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Neil.
Well, I grew up in a little town called Elizabeth, West Virginia, where my family has been raising cattle since the late 1700s, actually, when the wheel broke on the Bumgarner family wagon, and we decided that was a pretty good place to call home. But have moved around the country in the past 17 years of being in the animal nutrition industry, but got back home. And my wife and I, Blair, and two sons, Will and Elliot, run about 120 cow operation, mostly purebred Angus, and also a few commercial cows as well. So not only do I get the opportunity to work professionally in the animal nutrition business focused on beef, but I live it every day at home.
I love it. And wait for this, everybody. Wait for this. What generation are you?
Somewhere probably around 10 or 12.
Can you believe that?
We have long generations. Our family wasn't on the right trace mineral nutrition program early on, so they aren't real tight. But
maybe you just got on the next generation a little quicker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're moving up in the world.
That's amazing, though. 10 generations of ranchers in your family, and your expertise is going to shine through tonight as we have this conversation. But Neil, let's bring you in now. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, again, appreciate being here tonight. Like Neil, our family came and ran the wagon. Ours had a little better wheels. We made it all the way to the Midwest and settled in that area in the late 1800s. Again, a multi-generation operation I grew up on. We raised purebred seed stock, continue to raise and sell and market seed stock today from the original homestead that was settled in the late 1800s. I live again, have a family, my wife Dara, my kids JC and Jackson. My mom and dad are involved in the operation as well. And then again, my day job with Hubbard, I work as a beef nutritionist, and I work with producers in North and South Dakota and Montana.
It's got to be pretty amazing to be in your field, and especially to work for Alltech, a company that invests so heavily in research and really wants to do things right. They don't do anything quickly. There's a lot of thought that goes into everything. And so that's why we want to talk about tonight a fantastic product called Blueprint. Now, many things in terms of performance have plateaued. We're talking about fertility, health, and weights, and making genetic advancements, but not always realizing the results. So let's talk a little bit more about what you do at Blueprint and what Blueprint is all about. Neil, what is the problem that you're looking to solve for our nation's livestock producers?
Well, as we just saw on those graphs, Christina, that we have made tremendous genetic progress in the beef business. Unfortunately, we haven't realized a lot of those advancements with the performance metrics such as weaning weights or pounds, pounds weans per cow exposed or fertility. So there's something missing in this equation where our cattle have gotten better. They have the potential to reach new levels of performance, but there's something missing there that we want to address with Blueprint. So Blueprint is the next step in mineral nutrition for beef cattle. And it's a unique approach where it's focused only on organic trace minerals, bioplexes and cellplexes from Alltech, and none of the old standby copper sulfate, zinc oxide, inorganic trace minerals that we started feeding 60 years ago.
Okay, so this is exciting. It's a unique approach to mineral nutrition, something that our livestock producers are all very familiar with. But let's talk about the significance behind the name. Why did we go with Blueprint? Tell us a little bit more about that background and tell us about what it's like to work for this company in the standpoint of an animal nutritionist and why you are so behind, why you support Blueprint so much, because you, sir, have really had a chance to look at the research, look at the results, and hear the stories.
I think if you think about the name Blueprint and you kind of think about the history of the program, we're coming on the program tonight, and this is probably relatively new to a lot of people out here, but it's a long time coming in getting to this point, right? I think we talked about earlier that research on this particular product started 12 or 13 years ago. And started on a very basic level and trying to understand if the animals do respond to it. And it sprawled out from there. We worked with universities to try and see if what we thought could be possible was possible. And then really over the last 5 years, as we've gone to the market with this, it's our customers that have really proven to us and really shown us that this product does work and that there is something to the idea that started a long time ago. And it all started with that blueprint, right? It all started with laying it out and having a plan moving forward, but you really had to have an idea on the front end in order to make that work.
I love it. I love it. So Blueprint is your unique approach to mineral nutrition. Let's take a closer look at how Blueprint works.
You spend each day trying to make your operation better. Better daily gains, better cattle, and better profits mean a better chance of your ranch lasting for generations to come. But what about planning for the best? Knowing what you plan to do today will result in a stronger, healthier herd for life. Planning to improve and find new levels of peak performance and health. Planning to ensure consistent results. Planning for this kind of cattle operation is possible. That plan is called Blueprint. Blueprint is a targeted approach without excess for peak performance. It takes the building blocks of cattle nutrition and programs your cattle to perform from conception forward, one generation to the next. Blueprint's organic trace minerals unlock the health and potential of your cattle to perform at their very best. It's quality over quantity defined. It's every detail considered, every angle assessed, and every animal in mind. Find Blueprint at your local Hubbard Feeds or Crystalix supplement dealer.
BlueprintAnimalNutrition.com is the website to visit. And coming up a little bit later, we're going to tell you about a fantastic giveaway that you can get in on. So stay tuned for that. It does involve 1 ton. 1 ton of free products. So stay tuned. But let's talk more about Blueprint. Neil, what from your perspective is it that makes Blueprint unique?
So the nutritional side of Blueprint is unique, where we use only Bioplex and Cellplex organic trace mineral. It's also unique for what's not in it, the inorganic forms, but we don't want to get too far into the weeds there. Really what's unique about Blueprint is how much data and performance is behind it. So there's a lot of products, solid products in our business today that are sold that are built off, an old NRC table of what we think cattle need. Blueprint is built off of years of both university research, where we run the statistics, we have professors and graduate students pay incredibly close attention, and then we also have our own large ranches say, tell us how this worked, right? And some of them keep really, really good data. Some of those, a couple real large operations with a few thousand cows in Florida have kept that data for us up to 5 years now. So we not only know what Blueprint does when we start feeding it at the end of a calving season or when we wean cattle, but what it does 2 and 3 years down the road once you've programmed cattle with Blueprint nutrition generations after generations, the fetal programming deal. So that research has really been powerful in convincing ourselves first that what we have here works and it is a unique approach, and then also that we have the confidence to go to the market and say, this will help. The research all came back incredibly consistent. 22 to 25 pounds of weaning weight and 3 to 8% increase in conception.
Wow.
On some really good herds.
If I could just add on that a second too, Neil, I think he brings up a couple of really interesting things there that tie into what we talked about in the opening on how we've seen a lot of these metrics in our industry stagnate over time. He brought up the NRC. The NRC, I was going to say has been, but the NRC really still is the gold standard by nutritionists in terms of trying to identify what an animal needs. A few things to remember about the NRC, that was developed using inorganic trace minerals that Neil referenced that we're really trying to get away from with this concept and this particular idea. The other thing is the industry has done things to ourselves where they've decided that the best approach may be just to chase who can put the most in, right? Who can have the most copper.
Some is good, more is better.
Right, and so that's really been something that we've done to ourselves. And consequently, that may not have been the best thing to do for the animal. I'm sure we'll get into more detail on that, but I think that's where Blueprint fits in. Number one, we've identified that there is a different way of doing it than what the NRC had done previously. And number two, that when we look at doing this by looking at this unique approach, there might be a new opportunity for producers too.
Wow, I love the fact as well that you two are so behind it, but you're seeing the results on your own operations, and that's something that I'd be very interested in finding out. Tell me a little bit about how it's working out for you, Neil.
So, like I said, we run mostly registered Angus cows, and we're a cooperator breeder for Stevenson Diamond Dot Angus in Hobson, Montana. So we send bulls out west to market and then have our own production sale in the spring. So we do a good amount of artificial insemination and a little bit of embryo transfer. But since we got on the Blueprint a few years ago, we use all frozen eggs. We aren't able to put in fresh eggs yet, but on our small 15 to 20 eggs a year, we went from that every single year, 45 to 50 to maybe 55% of eggs settling, to where we're consistently seeing 65, 70, up to 3/4 of our frozen eggs sticking in those cows. So for me, embryos aren't getting any cheaper when we buy them in sales or when we flush our own cows. So that's something that we've witnessed. And throughout my career, it's such an advantage having cattle at home. Because it makes us happier people because we own cows, but also that we can use these products at home and prove them to ourselves and not have to trust or wonder whether they really are what we say they are.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you went from 55% to 70%, and it really does come down to implantation, like you're talking about. So you can have as many embryos in the world, but you have to get that implantation in order for there to be a pregnancy. I just am so fascinated by this and what you're able to do. Tyler, you mentioned that Blueprint delivers heavier calves, which is something that producers in this country hear from a lot of different people that are trying to sell products, whether it's nutritional or animal health related. Why are you so confident that weaning weights will improve for producers who incorporate a Blueprint plan?
You know, in beef cattle operations, it is really tough to see what kind of results you get from a program, whether that be in the genetics you buy, or the feed products that you buy, right? There's a lot of claims out there and a lot of things that are said. And in several cases, it's really hard to kind of prove those things. I think when it comes to talking about the weaning weight results that we've seen, it really, the university research has been the foundation for us. It is not something that I would have anticipated on the front end to come out of this research. But the fact that when it comes out once and twice and 3 and 4 times when it's done, gives a lot more reliability and confidence to it. Now, it's something that's hard to talk about with producers, to be honest with you, because on any given year, the conditions that they face are probably going to have a larger impact on their weaning performance than anything, right? This summer in parts of the West, we experienced some pretty severe drought.
Yes.
When nutrients are that limited, there's additional challenges to try to hit those targets in terms of weaning weight and those sort of things. But I think what you can see over time is that they see the trend start to develop after they've been on 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they start to understand those peaks and valleys were higher peaks and valleys than what they saw before. Like anything in our business, we do need reliable data, and that's why I think, you know, Neil, you made mention earlier, one of the really unique things about Blueprint is that it does have this university research behind it, right? It wasn't something that our folks in marketing decided to come up with, right? This was actually proven. And then, you know, in terms, and just to be honest, in terms of working with customers, it isn't the number one piece of feedback we get from customers because it's just simply harder to see. But we have had customers that come out of pockets that sell their calves the same day as their neighbors every year, and they can see what their neighbors' calves are doing. They start to get an idea. Those are the first people to pick up on it. But again, when the results are that consistent, that's when you get all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, and that's why it was so important to have you on this show. We want to get the word out about this, that it's available, that you can feed Blueprint to your animals. And you know what? That's what we're going to talk about. Cattle producers across the country have put their herds on a Blueprint program. Let's hear from one of your clients right now about how it's working out on his operation.
Those Blueprint tubs, they just keep them going. Usually our hardest cows to get bred back are those 2-year-olds. They get drawn down, but with these Blueprint tubs, it seems like their top lines are good and they're shiny and they're just producing for us. We have some neighbors here and we all wean about the same time and we're all calving at the same time, and they said, I just can't put my finger on it. You're always a little bit heavier than we are. And I said, it's the tubs. It's these Blueprint tubs.
Wow. And she's got a pretty large operation.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a commercial operation, right? Cow-calf operation? Yeah.
You know, I think one thing that's unique, Kelly's operation is in Wyoming there, and it gets back to one of the things I mentioned earlier. As we move further west in the United States, issues relating to copper become a bigger issue. And particularly what happens when we go further west is it's a secondary deficiency. So those areas are typically high in things like sulfur or iron, possibly molybdenum. And so that's why they do have genuine copper deficiencies. And those are the areas that have chased these really, really high copper levels in trace minerals. They're the people that are also the most apprehensive to try it because of the lower levels. But coincidentally, they're also the customers that see the most dramatic success because they've delivered so much of this inorganic trace mineral that has this unintended consequence we talked about earlier of limiting performance. They're the ones that really see the benefit.
You know what? I really appreciated the explanation that you gave me a little bit earlier on. You were talking about foot rot.
Yeah.
Neil, explain that to our audience, if you will.
So, I mean, if there's anybody watching today that's had experience in the dairy business or been around a dairy farm, they're familiar with the foot bath, right? So a foot bath is where we have cattle walk through. We mix up copper sulfate with water, and it's a solution that kills bacteria. And it's not real complicated to think. A rumen is a giant vat of bacteria, good bacteria we need to break down fiber and starch and other different feedstuffs, and feeding some of these really, really high copper minerals. So, I mean, like Tyler said before, we've developed a really bad habit in the industry, and Blueprint is what will break that habit. But NRC, which is this, kind of abstract theory to most folks, but an NRC mineral would be 1,000 parts per million on a 4-ounce intake cow-calf mineral. There are minerals out there today at 3,500, at 5,000 parts per million copper. It's really like asking your cows to take a drink out of that foot bath, that you want them to walk through, or if you're familiar, killing the algae off a pond. We can do a lot of damage in a rumen by overloading it with some of these inorganic trace minerals.
And I think there was justification for what they were doing because we just simply didn't know any better at the time. We did know that they had a mineral deficiency because that's the first thing we need to do with Blueprint as well. We do need to overcome these mineral deficiencies. They're real. They're something that occur in these environments. And so we do need to do that still. And we have the data behind that, and we've done the biopsy work and shown that we are doing that as well. But what they didn't know they were doing was actually limiting the performance of the animal, and again, holding ourselves back. And so as we think back to our idea we kind of presented early on, that we think a lot of things in this industry that we measure have stagnated, this is really the opportunity we've been looking for to kind of break through that glass ceiling.
Well, it's almost counterintuitive to what we've been taught before. And so you really are going against the grain and finding that you're getting great results, which I just think is fascinating. And, we want our producers to make money. We know how competitive it is right now. We watch the markets. We see what's happening to cattle prices. And so we want our producers to succeed and get every bit of return on investment that they can get. So I love being able to talk about something like Blueprint. Now, Neil, we have heard that you discovered about how organic trace minerals in Blueprint can actually affect weaning weights. Does Blueprint help to unlock a new level of performance, though, as well?
Yeah, so weaning weights are probably the most common number we talk about in the cow-calf business, at least, and that's one of the things our research has shown that we do. And that comes in a couple of different ways. One is, we allow that cow who's on Blueprint to perform, to extract more of the nutrients out of the ration that she's eating or grazing, and that's related to milk production, which obviously can be related to how well that calf's performing at her side. But another key thing to keep in mind about weaning weights is is when that calf was born has a pretty big impact on what he weighs when he gets weaned. So, you know, 205 day is the number. None of us go and wean our calves every time they have their 205th birthday, you know. So when it's time to wean cattle, we gather them up and we wean them. And the earlier they were born in the calving season, the bigger they're going to be.
You know, I think at the end of the day, Neil, it's about what the producers see, right? And it's interesting that you look at that perspective, that we're trying to get more calves at the front end of the calf crop, right? One of the most typical things that customers tell us that are on the Blueprint program is not necessarily about total pregnancy rates, though. It's the fact that they had more cows bred early. And that's exactly the point you're making here. And maybe that's why we see the weaning weight difference as well on top of that. It makes perfect sense. That's one of the things customers see, is that they see more cows bred in that first cycle. And the other thing is that in those, in particularly in young cows, the ones that are the most challenging to get bred back.
Yep.
Wow. Let's talk about development and nutritional timing. Is there a specific point in a calf's life when Blueprint needs to be fed to capture the optimum benefits?
So today is the best time to get a calf on Blueprint, and we've seen benefits of Blueprint from the female side, as far as when heifers come into puberty in life, which allows them to obviously get bred earlier and be a more productive cow. The biggest impact on how long a heifer will last in the herd is when she calves her first season, right? So, but at the same time, you know, calves that are born while their mother was on Blueprint, there's colostrum quality benefits, so they'll have more vigor when they're born. They can perform more while they're on mama. We have a lot of customers that are using Blueprint to start high-risk cattle out of sale barns. So there's no wrong time to start Blueprint. We've seen advantages all along the life cycle.
So is a nursing calf and their dam consuming Blueprint the only way that you've seen the weaning weights go up?
Well, yeah, I guess that's an interesting perspective, because there is different times when we can provide Blueprint. I think in terms of addressing weaning weights, we do need to address the pair. And so, again, that's starting the cow pre-calving and then keeping her on that program. We need to keep her on a trace mineral program anyways, because that's the most critical time to get it in her through the breeding season. And so why not do it with Blueprint, where we know she's going to get more energy out of the diet? Now, there is other parts to Blueprint that we work with as well. It is a product that is for all stages of an animal's life, right? And so we're focusing heavily on the cow-calf side of it here this evening. But Neil just made mention of using it to start high-risk calves. And so we've done research in Texas, working with high-risk calves out of the southeast part of the United States with Blueprint, and seen success, and particularly the way it impacts animal health, morbidity and mortality in those particular groups of calves that we know are at risk of that anyways. And so, again, there is other opportunities outside of that. Performance doesn't stop the day baby leaves mama. We need that calf to continue to perform for the rest of its life, and that's just another one of the opportunities with Blueprint.
So are there different ways to get Blueprint into calves while they're still on mama?
Yeah. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the nicest parts about Blueprint, in my opinion, you know, is that there are a lot of forms that we can deliver it in. It's not just a loose mineral.
Okay.
It's not just a low moisture block. So, you know, through Crystalix is how a lot of Blueprint gets delivered to cattle throughout the country, through Crystalix blocks. Of course, through a loose, you know, free choice cow-calf mineral. But we put Blueprint in creep rations for folks mixing a TMR, you know, through the winter feeding season. There's just a lot of different ways that we can deliver Blueprint. So it's not just a free choice mineral. It's a program that is built for every stage of life.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I'm sure that we have a lot of producers who are joining us tonight. At this moment, they might want more information. We don't want to keep them waiting. Where can they go if they want to find out more about Blueprint right now?
Well, they can go to blueprintanimalnutrition.com and learn more about our products. But one of the best things they can do is make sure they stay right here for another 30 or 40 minutes and learn more. So we're just getting started.
That's right, the tip of the iceberg. That's it so far. So we are going to go in depth, a much deeper dive coming your way. But before we do go to break, I want to make sure that you know that our phone lines are open, and we want to hear from you tonight. 877-731-6733 is the number to call in with your questions. And Alltech is also giving away 1 ton of their new Blueprint formula to one lucky viewer tonight. Now, you can register for that giveaway at blueprintanimalnutrition.com/RFD. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Rural America Live with Alltech after this. Welcome back to Rural America Live. Joining us once again, Neil Bumgarner and Tyler Melroe from Alltech. Tonight we're talking about Blueprint, a targeted nutrition plan for livestock, and they are giving away 1 ton of their new Blueprint formula. That could be hauled to your operation. One lucky viewer is going to win it tonight. You can register for the giveaway at blueprintnutrition.com/RFD, and good luck to you. We want to hear from you tonight. If you've been watching and you have questions, why not call us up and you can ask your question live on the air. Find out anything you want to know about Blueprint. Our phone lines are open. 877-731-6733 is the number to call and join our conversation. And we'd love to hear from you. We're going to go to the phones in just a moment, but first, Tyler, spring right around the corner now, and producing more healthy calves each season is obviously a major concern for our producers. But even as genetics improve, this is what I find interesting. When you take a look at this graph, it clearly shows that fertility really has not moved substantially over the past 25 years. It's really fascinating to me. What are the reasons behind this? Why is that the case?
Right. Again, in our industry, we continue to put more pressure on the genetic side of the equation. And I think there's no doubt that we continue to make progress there. Whether that be in the weaning issues we were talking about earlier, or the fertility issues like we're talking about here. We see it on the feedlot side with health-related issues that we really have. We all know that our drugs have gotten better, our vaccines have gotten better, that our animals have every opportunity from a health standpoint they've ever had before, but we still see these issues on the feedlot side of things, and things don't improve, right? And I think one thing that producers forget a lot about, though, is that it's not just the genetic side of the equation, that there is the nutrition side of the equation. We have to give that animal, we have to feed that system what it needs in order to perform and meet those objectives. The other thing in terms of the fertility thing that I think we've kind of made mention of before, in that we have seen this kind of plateaued level, right? That we think that there was a lot of progress made 30, 35 years ago, where people did start to address some of these trace mineral related issues and get better. But really we've seen the effects of that kind of stagnate, right? And just kind of level off. And so with Blueprint, if we're going to break through that glass ceiling, like I've made mention of before, we really need a unique approach in order to do that. And so that's why, that we talk about them starting to look at this 13 years ago. Well, it was this issue was stagnant 13 years ago too. We've not seen anybody really break through that ceiling and move through. And so again, that's why we're excited about this as a unique approach to do that.
I also think of the end user. You think of healthier calves. We think of healthier meat for the consumer out there at the very end of the day as well. It really, to me, it just makes sense to at least consider a targeted nutrition plan for livestock, including Blueprint. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Neil, let's take a moment to focus on the critical role that nutrition plays when talking about fertility. After years of analysis, and Alltech is known to invest in cutting-edge technologies and research. Talk about the various factors that have the largest influence on the fertility of cows.
So we're here talking about minerals and trace minerals specifically, but we know the overriding factor has to do with energy status. The body condition score of a cow the day she calves has the most impact on when she's going to breed back with next year's calf. So, we think about in the grand scheme of things how much we ask of a cow. Once a cow enters the herd, she's gestating for 75% of her life, and half that time she's raising a calf at the side too. So there's 3 of them we're taking care of, So there's no good day to cheat a cow on any nutrition. But one of the other unique things about Blueprint is a research trial actually at Penn State on dairy heifers, which they're black and white, I know, but they're still cows and they still have rumen. So what that research actually showed was about volatile fatty acid production. I got a degree from WVU in ag business. I'm not the scientist here, but what it showed was better energy status from these cows on Blueprint, which is kind of hard to think about, that a trace mineral program increased basically feed efficiency in these heifers, but it did. So Blueprint improves fertility from a number of angles. The energy status these cows are at when we ask them to get pregnant every year and have a calf 365 days from the last one, and then also the way that the organic trace minerals support fertility, and the inorganic trace minerals we took out don't cause any problems along the way.
You know, we're in the business here of obviously selling these supplemental trace mineral programs, right? But there's no denying the fact that the most important thing to getting that cow bred is having her in a positive plane of nutrition. And that is having her in the appropriate body condition score and making sure that she's not losing weight at a rapid rate, right? If we can maintain that cow at an appropriate condition, we're going to have a lot of success in terms of breeding cows. And if we can overcome these few little deficiencies with trace minerals along the way, that's great. And so again, I think that's really a unique thing for somebody in the feed business to say, is admit and be honest and say that, hey, we need to address the energy status of the cow first and foremost, or what we do here isn't going to matter. And that's what is unique about Blueprint, is it is the trace mineral program that addresses the energy side of the equation.
Wow. Okay, well, I know that our phones are lighting up upstairs. John from Nebraska is our first caller tonight. Thanks for joining the conversation, John. Go right ahead.
Yes, thanks for taking the call. These gentlemen have been talking an awful lot about weaning weights, and our family's been selecting bulls for a long time on weaning weights, and kind of like some of the charts and graphs have shown, maybe we really haven't seen an improvement over time like we thought we should based on the bulls we're selecting. And so I guess I'd like to know how this nutrition really backs up how you select for your bulls, or is it going to help your bulls, or how is this supposed to make a difference, maybe in combination with our bull selection?
Yeah, John, I think that's a great question, and I think it does refer to something we've been talking about here. One of the things I have no doubt, if you're using some of the tools that you have in the business today in order to select for more weaning weight, which again is I think one of the most typical traits that producers will select for. Nothing probably is as important to them as selling heavy calves in the fall, if for no other reason than to brag to their neighbors, right? But John, I think what you're seeing is that it could be one of two things. Number one is, I made mention earlier, it sometimes can be hard to see if you've made a change in weaning weight from year to year. A lot of times the conditions that you deal with may be impacting that, and you might be making a difference you don't realize. The other thing is, and I think weaning weight is particularly sensitive to this, is that you do need to feed the system. If the animal has the ability to grow more, it needs to be provided more nutrition, right? And so we need to feed that engine. You aren't going to get full power out of that engine unless you give it the full throttle.
I like that. Okay, we are going to go back to the phones in just a moment. I want to make sure you have the number that leaves a line open for you, 877-731-6733. I want to get to some data, though. Neil, your data shows that fertility improvements between 2.7% and 14%. That's pretty significant, but it's also quite a range. Mm-hmm. Talk about what makes up that range.
So it's a good opportunity for us to talk about the differences in management and in operations across the country. I live in West Virginia. We're 90% endophyte infected fescue. Tyler's in South Dakota. Some places in the country it's easier to get cows pregnant than others. But the difference between 2.7%, that was a university herd. So this was a very well-managed, well-fed herd of cattle, 1,000 cows. So we're not talking about 30. The statistics work out a lot better when you have more cows involved. So I think it's just as important that we can move a herd at 92% conception rate to 95% than help the guy that really needed help that was at 68%. We got to 82. We made a bigger difference there. But being able to improve those herds that are really doing well today, doing the right things today, tells me that the Blueprint is the real deal.
Yeah.
I think too, Neil, with that, it kind of reminds me of where we've come as individuals working with this program as well. I think when we first started with this program, we had the same type of skepticism that I'm sure most anybody would have, right? And when we were dealing with producers that were doing well to start with, 92, 93, 94, 95% pregnancy rates, we kind of said, hey, they're doing good. Maybe we should just leave them alone. Maybe they're on the right program. Let's just leave them alone. But what we've learned in the last 4 or 5 years of working with producers that are on this program is that we can't leave them alone anymore, because they do actually have an opportunity. When you're getting 94% of your cows bred, 2.7% is a pretty nice opportunity as well.
It's a lot closer to 100. Yeah. I mean, you're pushing the bounds further than we've ever seen before. Right. Doesn't that make you feel pretty good? And you're helping people produce the best quality beef in the world.
Absolutely. Pressing
the bounds. I love it. And I love Alltech for doing that. I love what they're doing with CRISPR technology. I just love Alltech as a company. And as an ag reporter who's able to watch everything that's happening in the industry, I do have my eyes fixed on Alltech. Let's take a moment to hear from Dustin Frey, a rancher from Granville, North Dakota, and what he has to say about the difference that Blueprint has made on his operation.
These cattle gotta perform in this northern country. We have some of the harsher conditions for climate. The fertility on the bulls is very, very important to us, because we want those bulls to produce semen at 10 months of age or 11. You know, we want a little earlier fertility in those. We want to see these heifers cycling at a young age. That's really good for these performance-oriented cattle. The biggest thing we've started seeing is that Blueprint helped us in our fertility and our breedback programs. We've seen healthier calves. We've seen more vigor at birth. We've seen less hoof rot. Going into years 2 and 3 and 4, now we're starting to see the benefit of the Blueprint program. Switching to the Blueprint and going full on board with this new product, I've seen some changes right away in egg production, fertility, recips, sticky cows. It all comes back to nutrition. We're seeing bigger benefits in just numbers. We've seen our recips go from 40 to 55% to 50 to 80% on conception.
And you got to hear a little bit more from Dustin, because you had a chance to go out there and film that with him. Right?
That was a chilly morning. It
looked like it.
There's no other option in February in North Dakota, though. They're all chilly mornings.
But you know, it seems as though Blueprint's working out pretty well in his Northern Plains operation. Talk about how colder weather might play a role, or what producers who live in the colder regions of the country, how they can benefit from Blueprint.
Right, and I think whether you're warm or cold, I think there's opportunities for Blueprint no matter what. You can see there in the video on the fry operation, they manage their nutrition through a total mixed ration, right? And so they use a mineral that supplements the forages that they grow at home, and they can provide the cows exactly what they need at any given point in time. You know, where they live, they freeze up in the fall and get covered up in snow. There's not as many grazing opportunities as maybe other parts of the country where cows can be out and about. And I think what's unique, you know, in those cases, you know, when we talk about grazing cattle, we as producers have very little control over their nutrition at that point. There's very little that we can do about it. They're going to go out and select and choose whatever Mother Nature's given them at that point in time. And I think that's where Blueprint really can shine as well, and that we can help make sure they get everything out of what they've selected out there.
Wow. You know, there are a number of products on the market today, and we know that our producers out there are very smart. They like to put their time into making wise investments. There are a lot of products that have the name breeder in the title. Talk a little bit about what sets Blueprint apart.
I think that's a good question, and we didn't put breeder in the title of any of our Blueprint products because that puts it in a window where we know the benefits of Blueprint year-round are realized by our customers that are committed to the program. And most of those breeder minerals or breeder tubs or blocks we see today have organic trace minerals included at some level. Most of the time you can look at a tag and you have no idea how much. And that's one nice thing about Blueprint is that that's the only trace minerals in Blueprint. It's a very transparent tag. There's no games with how much is the good stuff and how much is the cheap stuff. The bioplexes and cellplexes are the only thing in there. So it's beyond breeder mineral is what I tell folks when they ask that. Is Blueprint a breeder mineral? I was like, yeah, it is, but it's for all the other times of the year too.
I love the comment too about being the most transparent tag. I think that's one of the things that as we started to tell our Blueprint story and really understand what our Blueprint story was, that was really critical for us to tell people that when you purchase a bag of mineral, you don't necessarily know what's in there. You have guaranteed levels of it, but you don't know how much of what particular ingredient are in there. So for example, when we talk about copper sulfate versus bioplex copper or copper proteanate, if I put a little bit of copper proteanate in there or a little bit of bioplex copper in there, it can show up on the tag, but you don't know if it was a pinch or if it was the vast majority of it. When we remove the inorganic, and it is the only source of copper, you know exactly how much is in there from that high quality bioplex trace mineral.
And only Blueprint is doing this right now, which I think is amazing. You're just setting trends as well. We're going to go to the phones. We have, I hear, 5 callers lined up, so we'll definitely make sure we get to you guys. Mike from Louisiana, thanks for joining us. Go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to ask them about the question of how much money does it cost per day, or how much does a cow, say a 1,200-pound cow, have to consume a day to get what she needs out of their syrup tubs or their leak blocks, whatever, how they sell it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike, and that's an area where Blueprint is going to be similar to a lot of other products. Our free choice loose minerals are formulated for 4 ounces per head per day consumption, which is basically industry standard. And on a Crystallix protein block, we're targeting 3/4 pound per day intake. And as related to cost, the cost of adding Blueprint to a solid program is it's about 3 cents per head per day. So we're not talking about a prohibitively expensive product. This is not something that'll really give you sticker shock when you go to your dealer and ask for a bag of Blueprint mineral or Crystallix Blueprint block. So we think it's, and our customers know the return on investment that they've calculated is at least 5 to 1 and usually 7 to 1 from those large ranches that keep their own data and have to report to a board because they're that size that they can justify that purchase. But yeah, so 4 ounces on the mineral, Mike. 3/4 pound on the Crystallix Blueprint, and it's about 3 cents per head per day to add Blueprint to your current program.
And it really does come down to that return on investment as well. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Okay, we have to pause for a quick break, but we are going to get to your phone calls on the other side of this break. Rancher from Montana, I am being told that is his birth name, Rancher from Montana. We'll get to your call on the other side of this break. We want to hear from you as well. 877-731-6733 is the number to call. And Alltech is also giving away 1 ton of their Blueprint formula to one lucky viewer tonight. You can register for that giveaway at blueprintnutrition.com/RFD. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Rural America Live with Alltech after this. Welcome back to Rural America Live. We are back with the Director of Sales at Alltech, Neil Bumgarner, and Senior Beef Nutritionist Tyler Melroe is joining us tonight as well. And they are giving away 1 ton of their new Blueprint formula to one lucky viewer tonight. You can register for that giveaway at blueprintnutrition.com/RFD. And we are taking your calls. We're going to go right back to the phones. Rancher of Montana joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Rancher. Go right ahead with your question.
Hi. Eastern Montana, we were severely drought last year and overridden with grasshoppers. If we get any kind of moisture at all, I'm thinking that we're probably going to have some green grass, and wondering if we have anything in the Blueprint line, or if there's anything in the Blueprint line that has magnesium for grass tetany.
Yeah, definitely. what I think he's referring to, and I think people in the eastern part of the United States are very issues relating to that, right, Neil? We'd welcome some green grass there, rancher. Hopefully we get it this year. There is products available that are higher in magnesium to deal with potential grass tetany issues, both in the loose mineral form and also in the crystallix form. And so again, fortunately where you live, Dealer Network will be able to hook you up really well there.
All right. Thank you so much for that call, Rancher. Next, we're going to Indiana. Tony joins the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Tony. Go right ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I'm in the club calf business here in the Midwest, and boy, we have a hard time with those things when right after birth they're just so lethargic and hard to get going. I didn't know what kind of responses you'd been seeing relative just to calf health and that immediate calf vigor right after birth.
That's a challenging issue for folks like yourself, Tony. I know some of your birth weights, you get a head start on weaning weight when they come out at 150 pounds, like I hear some of my customers talking. But that is something we haven't talked a lot about this evening is baby calf health, and that is something that we've measured and documented. A couple different things go into that. The colostrum quality, so that first meal that some of those calves take. We measure the immunoglobulins, the antibodies that are in that colostrum, to where that's a stouter dose of the right stuff for a baby calf. But then another thing that we believe in and our customers have told us about this baby calf vigor, the 100% organic selenium in Blueprint is something that we maybe don't talk enough about. So we know selenium has a lot to do with calf vigor and the fact that ours is 100%. So yeah, I mean, if you can get those things out alive on Blueprint, I think from what our customers have told us, they've got a lot better chance to hop up and get those big heads under that udder and get going.
If I could just add on that a little bit too, Neil, one thing we have not talked about tonight, and this isn't directly related to Blueprint, but in case, Christina, any of the viewers tonight are wondering a little more about Alltech, and maybe they haven't heard of Alltech before, one thing they may have heard of before is biomass. Biomass is kind of a gold standard kind of product that comes from Alltech that's really well known in the beef industry. And we do recommend using Blueprint formulation with biomass prior to and during calving season. Helps with E. coli and Salmonella, scour-related issues, helps with colostrum quality issues, and again, can help with that baby calf health issue.
Wow, we're getting some great calls tonight. Donald from Louisiana joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Donald. Go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I was just wondering, I live down in South Louisiana, about 45 miles as the crow flies from the Gulf of Mexico. And I was wondering how these minerals would work down here.
Great. Yeah, I think, what we're talking about here tonight, Donald, is the trace mineral component. And so I think those trace minerals are important regardless of where you live, whether it's, down by the bayou down there, or if it's in the deserts of the western United States or the lush green grasses in West Virginia. Again, I think that the trace mineral component of it is going to be critical no matter where you're at. I think when you talk about the big differences in terms of what people need from a mineral standpoint are going to be more the macro minerals. And so the things that are different would be like things like phosphorus and calcium, maybe magnesium, like a caller brought up earlier. There are different needs for those based on some of those different forages. And like we talked about earlier, having some high magnesium products, we have different levels of calcium and phosphorus as well that I think would be a really good fit for what you have down there. It's just a matter of getting you into the right product.
All right. Thank you so much for that call. And before we go back to the phones, I have a question as well. We referenced metrics. We got to talk about metrics in the cattle industry that have plateaued. Feedlot health is one of those. Feedlot health is so important. How has Blueprint been used in feedlot applications?
I think the most really the first study that we had in regard to this is a piece that we call the OT research. And also I see up on the screen here now, this is data that was actually done actually in Europe. And so again, not only have we done the research in America, we've done it all across the world. And we see this again, very consistent result in that there is reduced mortality, morbidity on the cattle that are receiving these programs. And again, there's probably two parts to that. Animals that are stressed and started in a feedlot situation, they're likely very depleted in terms of their trace mineral status, and so they do need some trace minerals from that standpoint. But the other side of it is the energy equation that we keep talking about. Cattle that are eating and cattle that are in a positive plane of nutrition are far less likely to get sick than the ones that are going backwards. And so there is tremendous opportunity with this program on the feedlot side of things as well.
And it's fascinating how it works across regions, not just here in this country, but around the world.
Yeah, that's an important part that really helps us have confidence, because this calf health issue, that was European data. There's, Tyler mentioned Texas, and then some of our large ranches that have been on Blueprint for 4 or 5 years in Florida have kept the same data and saw over 50% drop in pre-weaning mortality. So not only are more pounds per head going on the truck, there's just more calves getting on that truck at the end of the grazing season. So,
which is exciting for producers who are trying to increase the size of their herd. We need to increase the overall herd size in this country as well if we want to feed a growing population in this world. So it's really fascinating what you're doing to help meet that demand. Now, are there any other health-related benefits that producers can get from using Blueprint?
Right. You know, I think one thing that, again, I think somebody called and asked a question earlier, and Neil, you talked about it, and that was in regards to the early calf health. Neil has made mention too of some of the large ranch kind of demonstration work we've been working on. That's long-term large ranch studies where they've been feeding the Blueprint program. And what they've seen in those particular cases was that those calves, they actually had less pre-weaning mortality, less pre-weaning death loss in those programs as well. And so there's opportunities there as well.
Lots of opportunities. Okay, we only have a few moments left. I wanted to give you both an opportunity to share your final thoughts. Neil, let's start with you.
Well, it was exciting to get the opportunity to be here, and we are here to discuss a product that, you know, Tyler and I feed our families by supporting and promoting, but we're also cattlemen, as we've discussed. I've got 2 little boys that thankfully look a lot more like their mother than I do. But helping cattlemen stay profitable is the biggest key to sustainability there is. So if there's going to be a chance of Will or Elliot Bumgarner being the next generation, they're going to need to be able to turn a profit. Because we get a little smarter each generation, and if we don't start making a little bit more money in this business, it's going to be a lot harder to get the next generation recruited. So I'm excited that we have a product that I've got no qualms on, you know, using myself, promoting confidence in the data behind it, that we're trying to help producers with something that's been proven across the country to provide results. So that's what makes it so satisfying to get to have this role and to get to talk about Blueprint and inform curious folks from around the country, like we've heard tonight, on how they can get better, because that's who Blueprint's for, is the folks that want to get better.
Absolutely. And for the 11th generation on your farm, we know you want to leave it in the best shape possible on your ranch. Tell us, Tyler, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think just real quickly, what I would leave folks with this evening is that I understand the skepticism. You know, I think we come up here and have said a lot of things, obviously very positive in regards to the results that we've experienced with this particular product. But I just want to remind people that we started at that same skeptical place. The first year we came out with Blueprint, just full disclosure, I had a hard time feeding it to my own cattle because I was a traditional nutritionist. I thought this NRC gold standard was there, right? But the results I have seen, I don't want to give them up today.
No, so grateful to share it with our audience. Thank you for joining.